this as well. Sorry, I'm being needy tonight. So, good evening and welcome to tonight's segment of the faculty lecture series. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Jess Gallardi. I am professor and director here, and I coordinate the lecture series. So thanks for attending tonight's lecture. Keep an eye out for upcoming lectures. There's a rat card over there on the shelf that you can see what the future schedule's like. And because we have so many counselor ed students and you all are online, these are live streamed as well. So feel free to take one of those. The next lecture is on this Thursday, March 6th, featuring Dr. Beth Bonstetter of Communications. So let's talk about these awesome humans, colleagues, and friends of mine. So Dr. Sandra Gavin and Dr. Courtney Allen-Pavlak, the School of Counselor Education. Dr. Gavin is an assistant professor of counselor education, a licensed professional counselor, a national certified counselor, and an improved clinical supervisor. She teaches a variety of courses within the School of Counselor Education, MA and PhD programs. Sandra's research interest focuses on increasing counseling, self-efficacy, and competency of counselors in training to work with LGBTQIA+ people, as well as mentorship. Dr. Gavin continues to work in private practice, serving a wide range of populations and presenting concerns. She currently serves on the editorial review board of the Journal of LGBTQ Issues in Counseling and is the trustee of membership for the Society of Sexual, Affectional, Intersex, and Gender Expansive Identities. Dr. Courtney Allen-Pavlak holds a PhD in counseling and counselor education and is a professor of counselor education at the university. She trains doctoral and master level students in both clinical mental health counseling and professional school counseling. She has much experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion work and regularly incorporates social justice perspectives in her pedagogical practices. In addition to having a passion for equity work, Dr. Allen-Pavlak is committed to supporting students in the doctoral journey. Her research areas include narrative theory and counselor development. She has multiple presentations on narrative theory, techniques, and pedagogy. In addition to teaching, Dr. Allen-Pavlak holds an active license as a professional counselor and currently has a small private practice in counseling. So in their words of tonight's lectures, many traditional counseling modalities promote identity development and connection. In recent years, there has been a call for creative counseling interventions that honor diversity, deepen self-awareness, and promote interpersonal connections. This presentation explores non-traditional techniques that illuminate personal identities and foster deeper human understanding. Storytelling has been used throughout time to help us connect, discover our unique qualities, and better understand others. Participants will be invited to share their origin stories and re-examine their positions, power, and personal agency. In addition to utilizing narrative techniques, this presentation also includes creative strategies such as photo voice, music therapy, and art to help participants understand their identities in new ways. The purpose of this participatory lecture is to stimulate critical thinking and self-reflection and to support participants in becoming better listeners, communicators, and connectors. So help me in welcoming Dr. Gavin and Dr. Allen-Pavlak.
Thank you very much. You did a better introduction we could have done for ourselves, so we appreciate it. And also, we really appreciate you taking the time and meaningfully being able to allow us the space when we have our lab students here. So hands raised if you're related to counselor ed in some way, shape, or form.
Oh my goodness.
Almost everybody, which is really exciting.
You could be
really
honorary
exciting.
members.
Thanks, y'all, for attending. We're really excited to have you here, and we'll get started. Oh, she already did for me. Okay, so I think what I want to briefly start talking about is counselor development really should include that we are becoming self-aware and that we're also being more aware of other people. So usually when I teach labs, I'll make a quick comment of who you are today is probably not who you're going to be when you graduate, because there's a lot of self-growth that happens within our program. And in addition to that, you learn more about your way of being in the world and how other other people as beings as well, and that they're different and unique in their own way. So today, he already read the description, but here's the 3 main learning objectives. And what we're really going to intentionally focus on is exploring some of your unique qualities that you have, engage in self-reflection about your unique identities, as well as starting to work towards building community. And then, specifically, Courtney and I love creative modalities. We tend to integrate that into our coursework. We also went to Italy recently, this last summer, and did a presentation related to these things. So I can tell you we are very passionate about these type of things. We'll talk about photoelicitation, music therapy, and then an art-based kind of modality. It's going to actually be a collage. And then this will help you start examining and articulate your own senses of self. And then Courtney will briefly talk about this as well. So talking about narrative strategies that will help you re-examine your own power, personal agency, position in the world, and how that influences yourself and also the people around you. Anything you want to add?
No, I think it covers it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I would like to start to note that in counselor education, it is really important that we engage as counselors to honor and embrace multicultural diversity. So with that being said, who's heard of intersectionality, the term, before? So several of you have, some of you have not yet. So intersectionality was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in the 1980s. And she really talked about intersectionality being this social categories that are impacting us, whether advantages or disadvantages. And then Pamela Hayes in 1996 created the addressing model. And it's something that I think all of us should be very aware of as we're learning about ourselves and also other people. So when you're thinking of the addressing model, here's actually what it stands for. Take a quick peek at it. So A for age and generational influences. Could Courtney's generation and those influences be different than mine, for an example? Disability status. It's really hard to read some of this, so I'll do my best. It's kind of jiggly here. Religion, spiritual orientations, ethnicity and race, SES status, so socioeconomic status. Can me coming from a working class background impact my sense of self? Affectional or sexual orientation, indigenous heritage, nationality, national origin, gender identity. So these are just some examples to help folks start considering their social factors. So this is just a start, though. There's so many others that you could add in here. What are some other social identities or factors that maybe could be added to this list? Education level. What else? Geography, where you're located. Uh-huh. What's one more?
I think this might be like in with socioeconomic status, but like in like available resources that you have.
Access to things, right? Accessibility, absolutely. Okay. So when you're thinking of this addressing model, and for the folks who are in the counseling program, this will probably be brought up in your multicultural counseling course if you haven't taken it yet. However, for other folks who have not, if you Google Pamela Hayes addressing model, I think it's a really good one to consider to write out your own social identities and influences on your sense of self and others around you and your position in the world. So that's one to keep in mind.
And consider how your identities in any of these areas intersect with each other. And so how like your socioeconomic status might be connected to your age and generational influences. And so just to not only look at them independently, but how they might intersect.
Yeah, and when we get to the collage part, I'll briefly talk about mine a little bit and the intersectionality that goes with that too, for an example. Okay.
Okay. So today we're going to be talking about how we kind of find ourselves in the world and how we kind of take up space and influence others and how we understand our sense of self. And there's 3 ways to kind of look at that. And narrative theory, which is sort of my little jam, really likes to deconstruct the stories that we tell about ourselves and the stories that we tell about our community and about others and our relationship to that. So one of the ways in which narrative theory deconstructs that is looking at power, position, and personal agency. And so as we move through today, I want you all to consider, we're going to do these activities, and hopefully you'll participate and share with each other and share out with us. As you're moving through this and reflecting on your own personal stories and the stories that you created around the world around you, think about this, your sense of power in that story. So there's 3 different activities. Your sense of power might actually change amongst the activities. And so depending on what story you're telling, or who's in the story, or what angle you're looking at it from, your sense of power could change. Going back to the addressing model, all the different identities that you hold, your sense of power could change with the intersecting identities. And so in some ways, you could hold power, and in other ways, you might feel like you have less power, possibly more marginalized, probably more oppressed, or more privileged. So consider that. Also consider your position. So in the story that you're kind of creating, the narrative you're creating about your role in the world and the world around you, consider where your position is. And how, as you tell the story, if you alter a little bit, how that position might change. Or if you tell a story from somebody else's perspective, how that might change your position. And then the last one is this personal agency. This is your ability to sort of enact change in the world around you. That your ability to move and to, is connected to power, to be a force within your own story. Okay?
Okay, so let's get started on the first one. So the first one's related to photo elicitation. If you haven't heard of photo voice, so what that particularly is a participatory-based research where we have participants engage in some type of maybe training to take photos, and it shows their unique experiences, identities, etc., and it's a transformative healing kind of experience, empowering experience. We're not going to have y'all to go take photos anywhere. So we're going to do photo elicitation. And what photo elicitation really is, it's really a method of being able to make meaning to something, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to show you 3 photos, and I know many of you are not from the San Luis Valley, but we targeted this presentation to the San Luis Valley. So you might have to be open and curious to what you're going to be feeling or experiencing while you're looking at these photos. However, what I want you to do is take a look at 3 photos. We'll do about 20 seconds each slide. Think about what emotions pop up for you, what thoughts you're experiencing, or even maybe memories. Maybe it's new memories you made today. So when we go through, just be open of what's provoking, what's coming out, what's resonating with you when you look at these photos, okay? Then after we go through that, then we'll briefly do a 5-minute in your little areas of discussion about it, okay? Okay, we'll go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
Perfect. So this is the sand dunes.
Does anybody recognize this? You might have flown over it today as you were coming in.
Okay, so take 20 seconds to reflect upon maybe feelings, thoughts, maybe even memories if you have them, related to sand dunes. The next photo is about cranes, and it's actually, you can talk more about this, but cranes are a big deal in the valley. So taking a look here, take 20 seconds to think about feelings, thoughts, or memories as it could relate to maybe animals or cranes.
These are, just so you know, that these are the sandhill cranes. The valley is a big part of their migration experience. So we actually have a Sandhill Crane Festival every March. As they come through, they come in like droves. It's pretty impressive.
So 20 seconds. Okay, who can guess what mountain this is?
What you got? Mount Blanca.
It is Mount Blanca. So if you go outside, for the folks who aren't from here, maybe not right now, but in the daylight, look this way, the east, you'll see Mount Blanca right there. It's so beautiful. It's right, you can see it from here. So
This photo, while you're here at Lab, since many of you are here this week, there's a trail out by a park, just right down the street from here, and I took this photo from that trail. So if you're here, if you get a chance, it's a great place for meditation or for exercise.
it's all like 25 minutes away.
Oh, no, this was taken just at the park, the little lake over here.
I'm talking about if they go to it, like the sand dunes
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah,
Mount
you can
Blanca
visit
and
it.
whatnot. Yeah,
It's so
and
close,
Zapata
yeah.
Falls. Anyways, okay, 20 seconds. Come up with feelings, thoughts, memories as it could be associated with maybe mountains or just generally Mount Blanca. Okay, so what we really want you to do is start being able to understand a little more of your stories and your experiences. And for some of you, this is very new, so it may not resonate like intensely, but it may a little bit in different ways. So just being open and curious to that. But what we want you to do is take a look at these 6 questions that we created. So go ahead and be, what thoughts do these emotions generate? What parts of your life light up when you feel these emotions? How does this awareness help you to understand your story? Maybe that first one. What feelings or emotions were evoked when you were completing this activity? And there's some over here on this side too. How do these reflections speak to your lived experiences and intersecting identities, perhaps? Are these thoughts or feelings tied to any memories or experiences from your life? So what was resonating with you? What we want you to do is take about 5 minutes in about groups of 3. So it can be in your little areas, however you want to navigate that, to talk about, answer one of these questions. Each person pick whatever question you want to answer and then talk about it in your group. And then we'll come back to talk about some themes.
And you can do groups of 2 or 3, whatever's easier for you, where you're kind of sitting there.
Okay, 5 minutes.
So you got to move around just a little bit. Okay.
30 more seconds. Okay, finish your thought and we'll come back together, please. It's nice to see the engagement and everything that's going on so far. So what we want to do is take a brief couple of minutes to have a little bit of a share out of general like themes or reactions that folks were experiencing.
I feel like a lot of us had like memories from home a little bit, from mountain places. So seeing lots of peaks was nice, and
Let me ask a follow-up question to that. How was that? So you're here, right, and you're away from home, and you're seeing this, and it's just down the street. How did that affect your sense of connection between like your home and then your like ASU home?
yeah, I honestly, so for me personally, I had been to Alamosa a handful of times.
Okay.
And so I think that seeing a picture and being able to connect it with home made me feel like Alamosa was more home in a sense.
Okay.
But it helped me kind of reframe on some of my old memories of this area, So.
Okay. So for the folks that are on the online, I'm just going to kind of summarize, if that's okay, and you tell me if I get it right. Just that this particular group was connecting with the mountains and recognizing that it reminds them of their own homes in the world. They come from mountainous areas, and maybe feeling a little bit more that Adams State, this area, ASU, Alamosa, is more of a home for them as well because it connects. And then you specifically mentioned it started to invite you to kind of reframe some of the memories that you had here. Is that about right? Okay, thank you so much, Bella. Mm-hmm. Is somebody else?
Our theme was like positive emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It made us think of like family things or like just life experiences that were all like happy and positive emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But within our group, we did have really different reactions
Mm-hmm.
to the different pictures. But I think positivity is a good like group representation.
So Olivia's noticing that there was a commonality of a positive energy or a positive emotion that was shared, even though the group members had different experiences. I'm wondering how that affected your sense of connection with each other.
I think we actually went beyond the positive,
Oh.
experiences that were near sublime.
Oh, I don't know if you guys heard that online, but near sublime was the way you described that. So beyond positive to the sublime.
I mean, some of us were describing experiences that were, and I would say that even in the short 5 minutes that we've had,
Mm-hmm.
that we built strong connections just in the commonalities of what we chose to share.
Oh. I wonder if there's a sense of safe in the act of sharing the stories in these like special moments and emotions, if allowing yourself to be a little bit vulnerable and reflecting on that comes into play there. I don't know.
I think there was vulnerability, and I think there was also a desire to share joy.
Ah.
And so not just vulnerability, but like something that's more productive.
And I see other folks shaking their head and Jess over here doing the same. So I have a feeling there's some similar reactions to that, the
Thank you.
vulnerabilities or something you wanted to share.
Yeah. I'll use my teacher voice. Very much echoes what others have said so far. I think a distinct difference is even though we have like similarities and then differences, but those differences are connected. Right. So, for instance, neither of us are originally from here.
Mm-hmm.
I often tell people, like thinking about the mountain, right? I grew up in Louisiana, right? So I was a southern boy that found myself in the mountains because I did my undergrad here in the early 2000s, right? So coming from elements to that. So right, we connected in not being from here, but taking the sense from that. The cranes, the sandhill cranes, because I grew up here, but having lived here, right, in two phases. So early 2000s as an undergrad, then coming back in 2011 to be faculty. It was in that faculty time where I learned about the sandhill cranes and how like almost majestic that is. And I would have never got that anywhere else because it's only like 2 or 3 places where that exists in their path. So it's like it's a beautiful thing to have learned. But also, right, like warm feelings, very close to family. So yeah, right. But still being able to connect in when we don't have that an intimate or a distant relationship.
I'm hearing a big part of what you're talking about. I think of this metaphor, building a bridge. We're all unique in our own way, and how are we relaying that empathy? And when we're building that bridge together, we can try to understand in a different way by being able to be vulnerable and transparent and talk about some of these like feelings, reactions that we have, and those type of factors. Yeah.
We had one more hand up here. Summer, did you want to share?
Sure, I guess it kind of aligns with the common theme of both of these conversations where like we kind of had opposite reactions in our group about like the sand dunes, like a couple of us had positive reactions and noticing patterns in the sand, and also the negative reactions of like maybe some trauma that we've experienced. And one of the comments was the feeling of being lonely. But for me, I thought of like the warmth of the sand on my skin and how much I love warm weather. And then the mountains came along and it was the opposite, where those who felt the sand dunes were a little bit lonely and kind of throwing us back to those negative affects. They thought of like beautiful and majestic, and I thought of them as cold and lonely. Because like growing up in Colorado, and I mean, my name's Summer, but I love the season. It's my favorite season just because it's like warm, and I kind of attributed that to what I thought about the sand dunes and the warmth, and then kind of just understanding the differences. But it brought us to really compel and like talk about our experiences and why we felt that way, and then we found like connections through that. We didn't say much about the birds other than I just thought they were majestic. That was like the commonality. So.
I'm hearing this, these themes of talking about the emotions, but this desire to deepen the conversation, to share something personal about your histories, your unique histories, and your experiences in the world, and like this want to of like you want to know about the person across from you, and a desire to understand each other a little bit better. All right, we're going to move on to our next activity. So we chose this song intentionally. There is a little bit of a place-based learning kind of element going on tonight because there's a theme of San Luis Valley, which is intentional too, since y'all are all visiting here this week. So this is a song by Gregory Alan Isakov, I believe is how you say his last name. And he is a singer-songwriter. The folks, do you guys know him in the back by any chance? No? So I'm not sure what year, maybe like 2015 came out with this song, and he wrote it about the San Luis Valley. And so we want to share about 2 minutes of it with you. And so as you listen to this, same questions. Think about notice the emotions that bubble up in you, whether they connect with the words or not. I think we have on closed captions so you could so you can see what the lyrics are. But more about what emotions it evokes, any memories, any thoughts, where does it take you, how does it make you feel? Okay, and then we're going to share out again.
We'll listen to it for 2 minutes.
Yeah. I think we might need the volume turned up. There we go. Can you hear?
I'm a ghost to you, you're a ghost
Oh, good. Sorry to stop the song, but I didn't want to go through the. Anyways, have a thought. These are the same questions that we just had, but I want you to just take a moment and check in and reflect with yourself about what sort of emotions came up with just hearing the music, if you paid attention to the lyrics or not, any thoughts that kind of were generated with you as you listened to it. And we'll share out in just a minute. So just have a thought for alone first, and then we'll put you into groups and share out again. Okay. So if you want to go into the same group again, that might be helpful. That way you have a little of connection already. And then choose like one or two of the questions if you want to share with each other. Just a few more seconds. Okay. If we could, I hate to pause the chatter, but if we could come back together and share out for a second, just kind of talk about what this was like for you, how it affected your sense of connection or not to the group. Who would like to share? What sort of emotions were evoked? Yes, Summer.
Sad.
You
Sad
felt
and
sad.
happy. One was happy. Most of us were kind of sad.
So let's take that sense of sadness and if you were to elaborate on it, what other secondary emotions? So sad and what else?
Probably lonely again. I feel like that's
Lonely.
yeah, the theme of the night. Lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us paid attention more to the music,
Mm-hmm.
and others the lyrics, and
Mhm.
others the pictures, and maybe a combination of both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So other groups, did you feel similarly or other emotions? Yes. A sense of peace. Mm-hmm. 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 Less tethered, maybe? Like the image of floating. Mm-hmm. Other? Yep.
There's something very nostalgic about the music.
Mm-hmm. Nostalgic, yeah.
Within that nostalgia,
Mm-hmm.
was something very like enduring and positive.
Mm.
And what I shared was we're all starting this new chapter together
Mm-hmm.
in an area that the music video was showing,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like we're kind of home. We're home
Mm-hmm.
for this week. And it's very powerful. It's going to serve people who have their guards down, who wanting to move forward.
Mm-hmm. It's very beautiful. There's this, when I hear the way that you're all describing this, there's existential themes going on here. Our sense of connection to the world, this idea of being alone, but also belonging, and that they can exist at the same time. It's almost like the more vast, the bigger we are, the more we're connected to, we see the nature and our very small place in it. It almost can bring this sense of nostalgia, I guess is the way, and almost like awaken a desire for connection to people around us, to the nature around us. When I first moved out here 10 years ago, I met an artist who had a bunch of paintings up at a popular restaurant here. And I just loved them. And they were of kind of like this abstract of nature. And I reached out to her and I bought one of her paintings. And I asked her what inspired her. And she said that she painted them all here. And she said she lived in Alamosa for 10 years. And that the valley, if you look at it from the sky, it's kind of shaped like this oval mirror. And she said the valley has this way of showing you yourself in new ways. Like you meet yourself in the valley in ways that you never expected. And so in some ways, it's like this big reflection that you almost didn't even see coming. And she said that she painted the nature as she imagined nature seeing itself. In this parallel process of that's kind of what happens to people when they're here in this vastness. Because there's a quietness here. And it invites us to sit with ourselves and our sense of presence in the world. And even feel things that we might not have the space or the ability to be able to access the parts of ourselves. And so I love these existential themes.
If you ever get a chance, go to the YouTube channel and read the comments. They're so beautiful. You've done that? Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, right, being more intimately connected. And I guess just, thinking about it in this space, it's a very interesting way to represent this space, right?
Mhm.
And I remember when it first came out, and not really considering it, but I guess considering again, right, like what they show is yes, a very true and authentic slice
Mhm.
of this place is, but I also think, like, if I was to put images in there, I think what's glaringly missing is green chili.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
One of the hallmarks of the valley.
and like, you know, a couple of other things, but like it's good.
So when you see this, it sounds like you're almost like painfully aware of what's missing. Like the things that, like, when you describe that, it's almost like you kind of long for that to be part of it, to be more congruent with your experience of the valley.
I also agree with that, just having some of that like previous experiences. I feel like we also all thought that it was very nostalgic and endearing, but the pieces that are missing are definitely a big part of it as well. So, and to build off of that as well, I noticed that either that was like a ghost of you or a ghost of me, or I forget exactly what I was saying, but when you said, oh, like a mirror, that line popped right out to me. That's what the line is saying in the song. So,
One of the comments was talking about this song has a sense of disillusionment, but also of connection at the same time, and that they both exist in the same feelings exist. That line, the ghost of you, the ghost of me, when I heard that, I thought about this valley who has had so many different generations have lived on it, so many different, like the history of this, and all the different peoples that have lived here, and how it almost like holds the ghost of the ancestors that walked these lands before us. And I was thinking, it invited me to connect and to ponder that. Like, we're only here for a moment, but this has been around for ages.
So we only have about 13 minutes, so I'm going to stop her before she continues. We'll go to the next slide.
I get a little carried away with existential themes.
Okay, so this last brief activity, it's kind of more art-based. So, and you're not going to actually engage in a collage today because that'd take way too much time. We need the whole time at least. But in general, though, a beautiful part about art-based kind of creative interventions is that it can really be healing. You can self-discovery, empowerment. So when we went to Italy this last summer, we actually both created our own intersectionality collages. And we're going to show you mine today, just very briefly. So taking a look at what I put in this collage, so you can probably pinpoint different maybe identities that I'm holding that you're seeing in there. So I'm a young, educated female. I also am a twin, may not look like it, but I am a twin. And then I love to work out, some other identities. I'm spiritual. I love cats. That should be a solid identity. Okay, so anyways, and then if you keep looking at it, so I actually lost my biological father a few years ago. I grew up on a poor, like a working class farm, but there was a lot of laughter every day, and we did the best to make the most out of our days when we're working outside numerous hours a day. I'm bisexual. I have 6 brothers and 1 sister, so you can imagine the chaos in my family. And I'm from the Midwest. So those are just some examples of some of the social identities that I hold. And when you're taking a look here, you'll see some maybe experiences that are important to me too. So I have like the Eiffel Tower. I went to Paris. I love to travel. That's really what that is speaking to. And there's other examples of memories too. So sometimes when I think of collages, I think of my social identities, but I also think of experiences that have impacted me, and I'll very much usually put that in here as well. So when I'm thinking of my intersectional identities that I hold, I'm thinking about how does that show up for me at work, at home, in my relationships. Also the values that I hold. How has these things shaped some of my value systems?
So if you were using this in your, like your therapeutic practice, or with your students, or if you were doing a team building activity at your work, and you wanted to invite people to share a little bit about their identities, how might you process it? So I'm going to do a little demo here just for a few moments and ask, very few moments, and ask Sandra a few questions here about the collage. So Sandra, when I look at this, you've I noticed that you highlighted the fact that you were the first person to graduate from college, right? And I hear this like sense of pride in there. And I hear that sense of pride throughout a couple different elements of your collage, especially when you talk about your family. And I noticed that in this, you have multiple pictures of your family and your sister. I'm also noticing that as far as you mentioned your SES. How do you think that, how would you describe your relationship to your SES? What sort of, and then you graduate from college, first person. What sort of characteristics did that bring out in your personality, do you think?
Good question. Now I have to come up with the answer on the spot. No, okay. I would say when I think of my SES background, my farming background, I think depending on my life stage, it showed up differently for me. So right when I was graduating high school, it was I wanted to escape. That was my goal, is to escape my upbringing, where I was from, all those type of things. And then as I transitioned throughout life, grew in many different ways, I think now I've gotten to that stage where I look back and that's home. That's my people, my family, and all of those type of things. But I think my SES status from the way I grew up still pops into this day. I'm definitely middle class, those type of things, and I still have a little bit of a poverty mindset to this day. I will buy a great value, I promise you that. So there's just one example of how some of my identities are still impacting me to this day, even though it may not necessarily need to.
And so part of narrative counseling, by the way, is one technique is to have an acknowledging witness. And so I'm going to play the acknowledging witness for Sandra to give you a little maybe insight of what I see when I hear you talk about this. The words that pop into my mind are grit and resilience. Those two, it's like they're screaming in the room right now. I can hear them. And just a love and a connection to your roots and to your family. So I just wanted to give you that little feedback there.
I appreciate it. We also did a I am from poem this last time when we went to Italy, and that was very clear coming through as well, the resilience, the tenacity, and the pride that I have. So thank you. Okay, so what we want to do, we have 7 minutes, so we don't necessarily have time for you to engage in this portion of the activity. However, what I would love for you to consider is what social identities or particular memories would you put on your own collage? Take about 30 seconds to think of maybe 3 that you would even consider that would be super important for you to add on there.
Like really essential to who you are and how you see yourself in the world.
So take about 30 seconds for that. It's definitely a hard question in 30 seconds. So no, you're going to need a lot more time than that. But that being said, if you can take time to reflect on those intersecting identities that you hold and how they show up for you, sitting in the space, sitting with your family members, maybe when you even show up at the gym. What's that like for you? And recognizing the places where you hold advantages or disadvantages, and where you show up, it may be different depending on where you're at.
And so what we've engaged with tonight is storytelling of our own sort of experience of ourselves, our own experience in the world with others, and even our experience with nature and the sort of vastness that is humanity. And so when you consider these stories that have emerged, these feelings that have emerged, take a moment as you leave here tonight to reflect on how does this affect how you see your position in the world? And how does this affect how your sense of power and agency in the world? It might even invite you to consider ways in which you would like to become more empowered, to become more connected, or to use your power and agency to advocate in the world. We had a couple of reflection questions. I know we're down to about, 2 minutes. So we can kind of share these with you, and if anybody has some thoughts that you'd like to share. How have these activities heightened your understanding of power, position, and personal agency in the world? Does anybody want to take a quick stab at that? Did you feel like you met yourself in any interesting way? Jess, I see you shaking your head. A reconnection. Okay, thank you for sharing that. What are some ways in which you can share your intersecting identities with others in the community? Mm-hmm. Fish bowls.
You'll be doing that real soon.
Yes.
I just think with our sharing and being open and being vulnerable, I think, is the big ones.
Mm-hmm. So inviting you to maybe be a little courageous and vulnerable and willing to share. Okay.
I think even with that too, for an example, the counselor educators in training, faculty, like also the way you show up when you're working with your students. So when you're thinking of this, like the mentorship, the potential even self-disclosure that could be very valuable in that sense of connection with your student.
Mm-hmm. Kind of modeling that vulnerability. Mm-hmm. What might be some ways in which you can learn more about others' experiences? Allowing yourself to be curious about others.
Yeah.
Afraid to ask questions, you know, like I hate surface, so it's like go deeper with people. It's okay to they want to share about themselves, so ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the questions and go under the hood.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Don't be afraid to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think a part of that too for the faculty in this space also, treating folks as people and as a person over a student, right? That is one role in their life. So being very intentional of seeing them as a whole person.
Mm-hmm. With very unique histories and lived experiences that really could teach us something.
Yep.
Every time we engage, it's a moment that we can connect. And then the last question is, how might you use your power and position in the world to advocate for yourself and others in your community? I see some nodding heads in the background. Does anybody want to share your thoughts?
Well, I mean, right now, the way the world is politically in our country,
Mm-hmm.
it is a good time for us to speak out resistance if that's what we're feeling.
Okay.
Those of us who can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So many can.
Having a voice for others who may be voiceless. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it.
Add to that, listen.
Listen.
Active listening.
I think it's right now, it's a time where a lot of people are speaking out, but it's a real gift to be open and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that can be a really powerful way to connect with people, even if you don't agree with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Something I think about too when I'm hearing you say that is we might not have solutions to some of the concerns that we have, and if that is the case, there's something to be said about being in community though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Yes. Go ahead.
I don't know if it pertains to this, but I just wanted to say thank you because coming to this has been a huge buildup and anxiety and fear for months and months and months. And even just having this conversation in this room tonight before starting tomorrow has been a huge help. So thank you. And like a calm.
Grounding. Yeah. We're in community for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess I also just wanted to say because like I feel like I'm in a unique position where I have like a dual identity of like I am an educator, I am a teacher, but I'm also a student in each capacity. It's like hearing you guys talk about it not only from like a learning perspective of like gaining more knowledge, but also like how you reflect on it as an educator has been really cool to see.
I think for both of us, we really view people as experts of their lived experiences.
Yeah.
So you have a lot to offer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. a wealth of knowledge. Oh, well, thank you, and I think that's such a lovely note for us to leave, to kind of close out on. I think our next slide is those questions again. But I think it's the next one. Oh, I'm
You're
going the wrong
way.
That's what, I was like, what?
So
Where
we
did
have
these questions come from?
if you want this
reference, yeah.
presentation, there's a QR code. If you feel free to get your phone out if you
go.
feel the need for it.
Yeah, and we welcome any communication after the presentation. We love to hear from you and to continue the conversation. And just thank you for allowing us to share space with you tonight and to hear your stories and your willingness to be a little vulnerable in this space, to talk about these sort of existential matters.
It definitely means a lot for many of you that are in counselor ed, being here when you're going to be hopefully bright-eyed and bushy-tailed right away in the morning, having long days. So it really means a lot that you're here, and we're really excited to work with you throughout the whole week as well. So please let us know if you need anything.
And thank you to our community members for coming and sharing in this event with us. We appreciate you. All right, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
y'all.